riding system. So we're going to be starting what I call our seat equalization work to get us straighter in the saddle and to get our hips and legs doing what we need them to do. So what do I mean by seat equalization? Well, when we sit in the saddle, we need our hips and the group of muscles within our glutes which control our legs and our seat to do quite complex things. They need to allow our thighs out to get around the horse, but also they need to bring those thighs the right kind of in onto the horse, as well as to have the right kind of rotation through the hip and thigh so we can have that elegant, effective leg and really refined control over what signals those legs are sending to our horse. Now, there are various little muscles in the glutes and around the hips which help with this sideways outwards movement and with the gentle closing inward that we need to, and they work as groups. But the big root cause issue for all of us before we start working on this is that each of those muscles also has a secondary action. So as well as taking the leg out or in, some of them want to rotate our thigh inwards with the knee coming in, others want to rotate our thigh outwards with the knee going out. And in fact, one of the muscles we're going to be working with today can do both, rotating inwards and outwards depending on where our hip is. So there's loads more going on under there than you might realise. So where the problem lies is this. The muscles on one side that's working hardest can get stuck on and refuse to let go. And the opposite muscles to that one then switch off and get lazy. So we all have a default pattern where on one side the body wants to take the thigh out and rotate it in, and on the other side the body wants to take the thigh out and rotate it out without noticing perhaps. So the different sides of our pelvis in this situation are actually moving and holding themselves differently using different muscles in different ways. So you might notice one thigh doesn't sit against the saddle in the same way. We end up with more weight in the other seat bone and so on, or our feet look different and not symmetrical in the stirrups. So we're going to do some slightly weird looking stretches, releases and activations to get the overly busy muscles to switch off and the lazy ones to wake back up. Now they look weird, but they work. You're going to want to grab 2 or 3 cushions off the sofa or couch or a couple of pillows off a bed for one of these. Now, a quick word about a couple of the things we do in this video. Firstly, the very first stretch in this video, which you will come to know and love as the pretzel. So it is famous in Rider Pilates Club, as you will see in the Rider Pilates Club Facebook group. Now, it's something I developed, and so it's something you won't have tried in this form anywhere else. There are some stretches out there which may look similar and say they do a similar thing, but trust me, they don't do what this one does. Now, you may not be able to get into the pretzel right now. Lots of people can't, but do not let that put you off. Do not panic. Let's make a deal here that you don't panic and think, oh no, this whole Rider Pilates thing's not for me. Just skip the pretzel for now, sit it out, and you can have a go with the second stretch in the video instead, which is an alternative. With that stretch, some people find it tricky to sit with their legs in front of on the mat when they start. And so if this is you at the moment, or if you've got knee issues or any other reason that those first couple of stretches don't work for you today, I've put more additional alternatives for you to try in the videos below this video. So if that's you, just have a play with the alternatives and find the ones which feel right for you today. The pretzel and its alternatives are here in this first session because the effect they have on the straightness of our seat and the symmetry of our legs when we ride is amazing. The pretzel is addictive when you can get into it, but lots of our members can't do it at first. So if that's you, it's cool, don't worry. Just use one of the alternatives and one of them will suit you. Lots of people will be using one of the alternatives at first. Lots of people continue to use them throughout. And be assured, the pretzel is only in this challenge once, right here at the start. Everything else we do is way less bendy for the entire rest of the series. The other thing to know is that in the slightly weird move with the cushions or pillows, you won't feel a stretch, and that is correct. It's a really subtle activation and you'll likely feel nothing at all, but that's correct. It does not mean that you're doing something wrong. Provided you followed the instructions, you've done it right, even if you feel nothing at all. You shouldn't really feel anything. You're all good. So, all fired up for day one? All right, let's go. We are starting in seated. We're going to do a very deep stretch into a small muscle in the glutes. It's called the piriformis. You're going to feel this all round about here, very, very deep sensation inside the seat. Because when this muscle gets sort of stuck on, it can cause your pelvis to rotate and your thighs not to sit evenly against the saddle. So to get set up, I want you to sit on your right buttock and tuck your right foot under the top of your left thigh or buttock. Then lift the left foot across the right thigh, and you want to place the foot really securely flat on the ground. You're letting that left buttock lift up off the mat. You're going to want to shuffle with this stabilising foot until it feels really rooted and solid, because you're going to need to put some weight into it in a second. From here, take your right arm, reach forward and around your left leg so you can hug it in really nice and tight. Other arm hugs too. Pull it in close and let your weight start to come over into that left foot. Restabilize as much as you need to get that foot feeling secure so that you can hug that knee in really tight and snug and feel that weight coming down into that left foot so that foot feels really rooted against the floor. Now, when you are getting this right, when you're pulling that knee in tight enough and letting that buttock lift enough and putting enough weight into that left foot, you should feel quite a specific, quite deep stretching sensation, quite localized in that left buttock. It's quite a deep feeling. It's not quite like stretching any other muscle in the body, but you will feel it, and you essentially just want to stay here. So we're not pulling really hard on that muscle, because trying to tug at a muscle that is overactive can make it just hold on tighter. But we want to make sure that we are feeling that stretch into there, and then just hold it, and breathe and allow that muscle to soften and begin to let go. And you will feel this probably more tightly on one side than the other. But in essence, if you need to pause this video and hold this stretch for anything up to 3 or 4 minutes until you feel that muscle really beginning to let go. So when you have felt that very deep sensation ease, we can set up on the other side. So this time you want to sit on your left buttock and tuck your left foot under the top of your right thigh or buttock. Lift the right foot across, ground the foot flat and secure into the mat. Really make sure that feels nice and stable. Let the right buttock lift up off the mat. Left arm reaches forward and around your right leg to hug it in really nice and tight. So letting that right buttock lift, both arms hugging, pulling that leg in close and letting your weight come over into that right foot. So you're hugging that knee in tight and snug and really feeling that that right foot is stabilising and rooted into the mat to enable you to lean over as far as you need to and really get that stretch moving into that piriformis. Let me just show you this from the side so that you can see a bit more clearly how much that buttock is lifting. So I'll move my resting foot just out of the way a second so that you've got a clear view of how much space there is underneath that buttock. So unlike a glute stretch where you would aim, or a hip stretch where you would aim to keep that buttock on the floor, you're really letting that seat bone lift up so that you can feel that very deep stretching sensation, very deep into that buttock there. So very much like you feel quite an intense feeling around the seat bone, and just stay here and breathe into it. Pause the video if you need to hold this for as many minutes as you need to begin to feel that muscle begin to release. And the same goes on either side. So pause the video if you need to and do that stretch for as long as you need. Now, if you found that one too bendy, or if you fancy just doing another one anyway, then have a go with this. Sit up tall on your seat bones, legs crossed or as close as you can get, front foot a little out in front. What you're going to do is grow tall and then stick the bum out as you hinge forward from the hip. Doesn't need to be too far, just until you feel a stretch deep in that glute. And here, just focus on that duck bum feeling, so lifting the tailbone as you breathe. Now you can do this if this is a bit tricky on the floor, you can do it sitting on a hard chair if that makes it a bit easier on your knees or your hips. But you just want to hang out here at the point where you can feel that good positive stretch deep in that seat bone until you feel it begin to ease. And when you feel it ease, you can release the body back up. Swap the legs around so that the other one's lying out in front. Sit tall, forward on the seat bones, and then hinge forward with that duck bum feeling, pushing the bum back, lifting the tailbone, and breathe here. So get to wherever is comfortable, and you should be feeling this stretch in and around the seat bone on the side where you've got the foot forward, if that makes sense. So just breathe as deeply as you can here and visualize taking that breath down into that seat bone. And imagine those muscles around the seat bone softening and lengthening and relaxing. And when you feel the stretch begin to ease, and that could take minutes rather than seconds, so do pause the video if you need to, you can release the body back up. So now we're going to wake up the other crucial little glutes, which might have switched off as a result of the piriformis being tight. Okay, so grab your cushions, 3 if you can, and you want to set yourself up like this. So you're lying on your side, propped up on your elbow below your shoulder, feet behind you like this, knees at about 90 degrees, sort of in line with the body. So take your cushions and you're going to shove them in here. So let's try 2 first off. So what you're looking for, no, not quite, is for the top thigh to be at least horizontal, if not slightly higher. So hope nobody walks in right now because they'll think you're a nutter. But yeah, that's all right. So more open than horizontal, or horizontal at the least. So push your hips forward, push, so that you're nice and long through the front of the hip, arch through the back. So make sure your top hip is on top of your bottom hip, and you can't really see because of all my cushions, but if you were to look behind me, the sort of the big toe on that top foot is sort of dangling down into the arch of the bottom foot. Push the hips forward, arch the back, so nice and long through the front of the body, and this is your move. You're just going to lift that foot and lower it back down. So that the only movement, so that top leg is completely relaxed, that thigh, apart from the fact that it's rotating on those cushions. So you don't want any effort in that leg to hold it out, just let it rest on the cushions. And you should feel this in the back of your glute. So I think you can see mine moving a little bit actually. In the back of the glute, at the back of the seat bone, that's where you want to be feeling the work. You don't need to move it very far, just move it as far as you need to feel that muscle deep around the seat bone activate. And then we'll set up on the other side. So take everything over to the other side. Get yourself lying on your side. Shove everything in there. Get it nice and wedged so it feels nice and secure. Get your knees back in line with your body and your feet, taking the knees to about sort of 90 degrees. Push the hips forward and arch the back. So really pulling the shoulders back as well. So the front of the body, all of it is long and the glutes are a bit switched on. So from here you can see my big toe just hanging into the arch of that foot. And just rotate the thigh. So make sure that the thigh on that top leg isn't doing any work to sort of support itself. The cushions are supporting it. All it is doing is rotating. Because what we're doing here is we want to use the glute min, which is doing the rotating without recruiting any of the muscles around it, which we would use to sort of bring the legs apart. So keep that arch in the back, keep pushing the hips forward, and make sure that thigh is relaxed onto those cushions, and just do as many as you need to begin to feel like you've got a little bit of activation in there, but before it gets tired. Brill, well done. I told you some of these looked a bit odd. So then come into a nice child's pose just to counter stretch the fact that you were just arching in the back and pushing your pelvis forward in that way. Take some big breaths here into the ribs and let the muscles down either side of the spine get longer, and feel those ribs coming apart as the air comes into the lungs and the ribs expand. And then when you're ready, you can roll the body up. You can get rid of your cushions now. We don't need them for the rest of the session. So now we're going to come to side lying. So you want to line yourself up along the back of the mat with your hips stacked and your heels in line with your bottom, your knees bent at about that angle, and making sure that one hip is on top of the other, and your hips are going to stay completely still throughout this. So just check that the top hip is on top of the bottom hip, and then have your hand in front of you for stability to help keep the body stable. And what we're going to do here is we are going to keep the feet together and the hips upright, but we are going to open the knees into a clam and then control it back down. And again. So what you're doing here is choose the muscles that you use. You want to be using those little muscles around the seat bone, the ones that you just felt us stretching in the first stretch. You want to be using those muscles to open the leg. So keeping the hip completely stacked, the hip stays completely still. It's a small movement originating deep in the seat. So just breathing normally here and trying to control this movement on the way down and on the way up. Now, keeping the hip completely stacked, so only open the knee as much as you can keep that hip completely stacked. If that means you're only opening a few inches, that is fine. It is far more important that the hip stays stacked and the movement is correct rather than that it's a big movement. So keeping it really concentrated in the seat. And the last one on this side. And back down. Brilliant. So now bring your knees to about sort of 90 degrees in front of you in line with your hips. And lift the top leg just above hip height. What we're going to do is we're going to rotate the hip to touch the knee to the knee, and then rotate it to touch the heel to the heel. Okay? So round and knee to knee, round and heel to heel. Round, knee to knee, round, heel to heel. So you can see here, just keep going with this, that what we're practicing here is the rotation of the thigh. So we need to be able to decide where our thigh is rotating in the saddle. And that means we need the little muscles that rotate the thigh forward to be cooperative, and the little muscles that rotate the thigh backward or outward to be cooperative as well. So we're getting them into balance by working through the range of motion here. So knee to knee, heel to heel, just one more on this side, knee to knee and heel to heel, and rest. So you don't need to do loads of these to just get those muscles activated. They can feel quite intense, even just doing a few if those muscles have been a bit out of kilter. Get yourself lined up on the other side, line up along the back of the mat, heels in line with the bum, hips stacked, so top hip on top of the bottom hip, hand in front of you for stability. And we're going to go again with the clam. So keeping those hips stacked, heels together, we are going to open the knee, keeping the hip forward and close back down. So concentrating that movement in the very deep muscles in the glute and ensuring that that hip is not rocking. So that top hip is staying bolt upright, almost like that hip is slightly pushing forward, it probably feels like. And it's totally normal and to be expected that you can open the knee slightly more on one side than the other at this stage, because this is one of the key areas where we tend to be asymmetric through the pelvis. So just breathing normally and ensuring that everything else is staying still. All of the work is in those little muscles in that right buttock, so deep muscles inside the seat there. Just a couple more. And the last one. Brilliant, great job. So now bring the knees forward so they're in line with the hips, bent to about 90 degrees, and we are going to lift that top leg to just above hip height, and then rotate to touch knee to knee, and rotate the other way to touch heel to heel. Knee to knee and heel to heel. So really activating and equalising all of the little muscles here, which will give us control over how our thighs sit against the saddle, and will help to keep the pelvis straight, and will help to ensure that our legs feel equally long. So if we get tight on one side, especially in the piriformis, it can make that leg sit slightly shorter than the other leg when we're in the saddle. So knee to knee, heel to heel, couple more, and the last one, and heel to heel. Lovely, well done. Brill. So come over now to lie on your back. We're just going to stretch out the sort of broader family of muscles that we've just been activating there, just to make sure they don't get sort of over keen and stay stuck on. So lying on your back with your knees bent, we are going to cross our right ankle over our left thigh. And from there, reach through and hold either behind the thigh or around the shin, if you're a bit more flexible and your knees can cope with it, and pull towards you so that you're creating that stretch down and through the right buttock and through the right glute. And just breathe really normally here. Take a few deep breaths and imagine taking that breath down into that right glute to really help it release. Nice long, slow stretch here, just letting those muscles all return to their previous length. And when you're ready, you just release and allow that foot back down and swap over to the other side. And holding either behind the thigh or around the shin, and give a little pull to bring that left foot towards you, and then feel the stretch through the left glutes. And breathe. And when you're stretching, it really helps to breathe in through the nose and take that breath nice and deep into the body, and imagine the breath going down into the area that you're stretching. And I know that makes no biological sense, but just when you imagine it, it sends a sort of softening signal to those muscles that you're trying to get to release and let go. A couple more seconds. And when you're ready, just release. Lovely. And we're going to pop over onto all fours now. And give a nice big shoulder roll backwards here. So roll the shoulders up, back and down to get the shoulder blades down the back. And we're going to just move through some nice simple cat and cow stretches. So on an exhale, scoop the abs and curl up, reach up through the back for the full exhale, and then inhale to come back down, dip the belly, lift the head and the tail into cow, and then exhale into cat, so reaching up through the back, and inhale to release and come down, exhale to go back up, really stretching through the spine. Inhale to come down, just mobilizing all the vertebrae. Exhale to lift, stretch as high as you can, and inhale to return down, lift the tailbone. Exhale to lift, really push up and stretch through the spine, and inhale to come back down. And last time up into cat, so really reach and arch, and come back to neutral. And we're going to finish with a downward facing dog. So get yourself stable through the hands and tuck your toes. And on an exhale, you're going to lift up and push back into downward facing dog. So here, really pushing your collarbones towards your ankles and lifting your tailbone high towards the ceiling and feeling the stretch down the back of the legs. We're just going to breathe here for a second. And then when you're ready, we're going to gently pedal first one foot and then the other. So just lifting the heel, bending the knee, and then the other, just to bring a bit more movement and length into the back of the legs. So just slowly, right heel, right heel down, left heel down. Just moving and breathing at your own rhythm here. Pushing the heel down towards the mat, keeping those collarbones pushing towards your ankles. Nearly there, just the last little pair of pedals. And release. And we're going to come down first to all fours. And then sit back on your heels, reach your hands forward, head down to the mat and reach into a nice long child's pose. So taking some big deep breaths in through the nose here, letting the air fill up all of the rib cage, feeling the air really expanding through your spine. So imagining the inhale causing the ribs and the vertebrae to move apart and to expand all of the muscles between all of the bones of the body. And a couple more deep breaths here. And then when you're ready, you can curl the body up to come back up to sitting. And you have finished session number 1. Awesome job! I hope you enjoyed it, and don't worry if the pretzel was a little bit bendy for you just yet. If you're getting as close as you can to it, then do that. Feel free to prop yourself up against a couch or a wall or whatever if you need to, and hold it for as long as you can, as long as you need to, as often as you can, and with time you will get the results. If you're doing an alternative stretch, do the same. Hold it for as long as you need to feel things ease there, and do it as often as you can, and you will see rapid progress on that straightness of the seat. So tomorrow we move on to the second of the 5 key areas in our body's riding system, with some incredible magical releases for the neck, the shoulders and the upper back. I'll see you then.